First D13 order at 4:02. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Christine, can you just give the date?
Oh, sure, yeah, policy committee meeting of December 17th, 2020.
It's like, person knows if they get mixed up.
Well, do you want to do the names around the table for the owl first or public comment first?
It's up to you.
As long as we'll do public comment first.
We're just here to hear what's going on.
We do have one person online with a hand raised. Okay, we have Amanda online and you should be able to speak now.
Looks like she's muted.
Yep. Amanda, if you can, okay.
Can you hear me now? Sorry. Okay, good evening. I'm just here to request clarification of board policy 5325 as it applies to the PTO run online fundraising. Parents were recently told that they may not use their own child's name or photo on a private non-searchable PTO fundraising platform due to student data privacy. I'm concerned that this interpretation is inconsistent with the law and the district's own practices. First, FERPA does not restrict parents from sharing information about their own child. It governs what schools may disclose from education records. In these fundraisers, only parents create and manage pages. So there's no students, no staff. FERPA would not apply. Second, the district itself, with parental consent, posts students' names and photos on public searchable websites and social media. So by comparison, PTO platforms are private, not searchable, and show only what a parent chooses to share. So treating these as a greater privacy risk appears inconsistent. The third, policy 5325 governs school-sponsored fundraising. PTOs are generally independent 501c3 organizations with their own EINs. These fundraisers do not involve employees or students acting on behalf of the district, so they fall outside the policy's stated restrictions. There's also no Connecticut law prohibiting PTO online fundraising. I've searched for it. I haven't found anything. If there is something and I can be corrected, that'd be great. But limiting PTOs to outdated methods unnecessarily reduces their ability to support students in today's digital fundraising environment. So I'm respectfully asking, I know we're going to look at it tonight, but just the points that I pointed out, just clarify whether, parent managed PTO run online fundraisers fall within policy 5325, and to consider, explicit guidance allowing them when they are not district sponsored and staff are not involved. Thank you.
Do you want to just state your name and town at the end?
Oh,
'Cause you
sure.
said at the beginning.
Amanda Betty, Durham.
Thank you. Assuming you said no one else was on, right?
Nobody else.
So we'll close public comment. Can we have an emotion for the approval of the agenda?
Second.
All in favor? Right. Then we have approval of the minutes from October 15th, 2025. So like I said, do we?
Three of us were here, so.
Oh, okay, well, there we go. All right, now, I was just concerned with the people who were here and weren't here, if we had enough. So, we'll take a motion to approve the minutes from October 15th, 2025.
Move to approve minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll abstain since I wasn't here.
I was on too.
Oh, I'm sorry. So do you want us to go around for the owl? I forgot.
That's okay.
Okay. Well, if you just say your name, will be
Nicholas Constantino,
Christine Cowan.
Bob Moore.
Sydney Leggett.
Lucy Petrella.
Jamie Rowe.
Kim Newbig.
Jamie Rohrbeck.
Okay. Right. You want to kick it off, Sydney?
Sure. So this was something that has been brought forward by several community members and several of the schools over the past couple of months in terms of looking at the school's fundraising policy. So for anybody who's at home, if you just give me a minute, I'll share it. I want to apologize. I was trying to share it up there. The screen is not cooperating and I don't know why.
If you do Google on your phones, policy 5325, it should come up fairly quickly.
The policy that's currently there.
The current policy.
Yeah, the current policy.
So,
I have paper copies. Kim, you want? Or this and those changes or the whole thing?
it's whatever you wanna,
And Ms. F, I don't know if we distribute proposed changes.
we don't usually do that.
Yeah.
but we can do the policy.
Right.
So basically there are a couple of small things that I'm gonna suggest in terms of updating the policy. As a general addition, I'm going to suggest that we add to the actual policy, all fundraisers shall adhere to non-discrimination. The opportunity to raise funds must be accessible by all. So that doesn't mean that everybody has to do a fundraiser. It just means that the ability to fundraise has to be accessible by every student who's part of that group or every family. Then all of the other suggested changes we're going to discuss tonight would actually be part of either the regulations or maybe some would go into the FAQ document that we've been developing to help everybody understand the parameters of fundraising. So the main issue that's come up is crowdfunding. So previously, the district had an absolute kind of no crowdfunding policy, and it prohibited all crowdfunding. Kim Newbig, our finance director, and I have been doing a lot of research about this, and we've been listening to a lot of the community feedback and some of the school groups. We're going to recommend that the board update the policy to include peer-to-peer fundraising and then try to clarify some other parts that would pertain to student data privacy law. So I know Ms. Fetty asked about law. A lot of these issues come back to the PPRA, which is the Student Privacy Data Act. So they go back to that. And how is the school district actually sharing student information? And there are very nuanced examples of when the school can do it, when a school group can do it, when a 501c3 can do it, if they're their own nonprofit. So we've worked through all those things and we've worked really hard to try to open up the policy, but also keep kids safe. So if we're looking at additions, we wanted to add under the part that reads criteria for fundraising activities. We wanted to add, and by the way, if you're looking online,
Regulation.
it's in the regulation. Yep. So if you're looking online, anything that is in bold and italic or strike through is something from the Shipman policy, which is our lawyers. And then anything that is in green, we're suggesting to add. So we're suggesting that we add fundraisers are intended to be a community building experience for students that encourage participation, effort, and shared responsibility. Fundraisers that solely ask for monetary donations do not meet this purpose and will not be approved. Essentially, that goes back to a lot of the board discussion the last time this policy came around about we don't want kids to just ask for money. Okay, there should be a purpose, a sale, community service, something like that. The next is RSD 13 will keep a current list of all school community partners approved for fundraising. These partners will complete a form that will be kept on file in the central office. This would be added to help us keep track of who is actually partners with us, and it makes it easier for us to say, yes, this is a school-sponsored fundraiser. Fundraising materials, both print and electronic, shall be limited to the sponsor's intended purpose and cannot be used to advertise for a separate organization or business. That just is part where we are coinciding with our advertising policy, just to make sure that we're not slipping in advertising into any of the fundraisers. The sponsor of the fundraiser, if an employee, shall not be permitted to personally receive any gifts, bonuses, or incentives from the fundraising organization, because that would be a violation of our other policy 1313. And then we wanted to add to number 6 in that section, add language to clarify that the sponsor shall inform and get written permission from parents, guardians. So our attorney, we did go through a lot of legal advice with this. Our attorney is absolutely saying we need to stick to the permission slip. policy. So if any kids are involved in a fundraiser, we need to have a permission slip. They can do that in a lot of different ways. They can do it electronically, you know, it could be parent consent, you know, when you sign up for a fundraiser.
Yeah, so like if let's say there's a peer-to-peer fundraiser where a readathon,
Yeah.
let's say that's okay.
Yeah.
Typically, then when you set up the
Right.
page, like that's kind of
That's the permission.
permission slip.
Yeah,
Okay,
because the
Mhm.
parent is actually choosing, giving permission, giving consenting.
okay.
Giving consent by signing up. And here's the bigger change, and this is taken from the Shipman policy, use of crowdfunding activities. So again, we added the first part, which is Regional School District 13 allows the use of approved peer-to-peer fundraising platforms. All general crowdfunding platforms such as Donors Choose, GoFundMe, et cetera, that are widely available on the internet are prohibited. So what that does is that actually does create sort of a walled garden out of what we're doing, keeping kids safe, and we don't have kids for a school-sponsored platform activity that's just wide open on the internet. Prior to engaging in any crowdfunding activities for the board, its schools, classes, or extracurricular teams or clubs, the sponsor, an employee, student, parent support, or other fundraising group, must first apply in writing to the building principal and receive prior approval for the crowdfunding activity as outlined above. Prior approval of crowdfunding activities must also include the name of the website, platform, or application to be utilized, a full description of the reason for the crowdfunding activity, a copy of the proposed personal profile to be listed on the site application, and the proposed content to be uploaded to the crowdfunding website, application, or platform, including images, student names, and school logos. So that's what's recommended by Shipman to make sure that we're in compliance with the Student Data Privacy Act. In addition to the following procedures outlined below for the handling of funds and record keeping, the following additional regulations apply to funds received from crowdfunding activities. Any funds received from crowdfunding activities must be deposited directly into a school activity fund and may not first be received by the employee, student, parent group, or other fundraising group, with the exception of groups with their own 501c3 designation. So if you're your own 501c3, your own group, it can go directly into your account. If you're using the school activity account, it has to be deposited directly with us. Crowdfunding activities must comply with all board policies, regulations, and procedures and shall not include the sharing of any confidential student information. I crossed out or did strike through for photos of students because we're trying to actually clarify that even further, a little bit down, further down. Student information. At no time will the school district supply any online platform, application, or website with any student information, including student email addresses, names, or likeness. All information about a fundraiser will be sent to parents and guardians to participate at their discretion. At any time, personally identifiable student information is released, the district will immediately discontinue the fundraiser. What this does is this, like you were talking about the consent and the permission, this just fully puts it on the parent guardian if they're signing up for the fundraiser and if they're creating a page, if they're creating a link, it's at their discretion. But the school district under the Student Data Privacy Act cannot give that information. Approved peer-to-peer sites. To gain approval, a peer-to-peer site must in their contract agree to the following. There can't be any targeted advertising towards students, no collection or storage of student information, no sale or trade of student information. Oops, that's okay. The percent, I thought I recognized something. The percent of profit kept by the company. This is something I think we should discuss. We just put in here, which cannot exceed 20% of all funds raised. Kim and I talked about that. Is that a good starting place? We're not quite sure, but that's what we're gonna use for now. We did have a lot of questions about student images, and it really is legally a very vague area. So in terms of student images, and this is a little bit different than if you're looking at a hard copy, because we updated based on some attorney's advice today that we got back. Student images may only be permitted when the image is part of an approved school-sponsored fundraiser and sent directly by the student's parent or guardian to their chosen recipients. While the district cannot dictate a parent guardian's actions on the internet, we highly discourage all use of minor images via electronic means. We also encourage parents, if their child is posting online over 13 years of age, to be vigilant about monitoring this activity to keep your child safe. Again, it says waiting for attorney guidance here. We did have a lot of feedback from our attorney about this today. And what we're really doing here is we're balancing the parent, obviously parents' right, First Amendment right to post pictures of their kids. The issue that, and this is something that several people have asked about, is that the issue that comes up is when you tie the fundraiser, school-sponsored fundraiser to those student images going out, right? So if we can use this language where it is fully parent and guardian discretion about what goes out there, we're discouraging the share of information just for student safety, watching out for that 13, we can allow this. Otherwise, when we have the no crowdfunding in the policy, basically, if it's a school-sponsored fundraiser, that ties it directly to student data privacy. So this is allowing this. It is legal. It's a way to kind of open that up and acknowledge that. First of all, we know, like we've always said from the beginning of this discussion, we know that we can't dictate what a parent does about their child's photo on the internet, but we can dictate if it's tied to a fundraiser. Right, that's the big difference, because the school can't be responsible for being connected to having all of those images that could be personally identifiable out on the internet. So it is kind of a legally vague and privacy area. For those of you who are very interested in the law, it's probably really interesting for you to tease that out. I'm gonna stop there before we go to possible additions to the regulations or the FAQs, because what we did is we tried to really clearly define personally identifiable information, crowdfunding, peer-to-peer fundraising, what a sponsor is, a distinction between publishing and crowdfunding. Again, that goes into that image piece. A definition of student likeness, what a 501c3 is, and then just some other things that we want to work on distinguishing in terms of what's the difference, for example, between fundraising and an event. You know, that's something that keeps coming up. And I'll stop there and see what kind of questions people have, but what this revision would do is that this would open up the no crowdfunding policy to very specific types of safe peer-to-peer fundraising that the district can comply with legally.
So I wrote myself a couple notes when I was reviewing this. So I looked at a lot of different district fundraising policies just to kind of get an idea of like, because the thing that I keep saying is all of us here right now probably go on Facebook and you're going to see some sort of fundraiser for someone you know that they're posting, right?
Except for those of us who are not on Facebook at all.
Yes, yeah.
Very
Yeah,
happy.
yeah, so you're gonna see, you know, something like that, you know, at some given point, you know? So that's, I always keep coming back to, okay, like, so how are other districts doing it? And that's kind of how I ended up going down a rabbit hole. So I will say the paragraph with the, in addition to following procedures outlined for handling of funds, you know, that I will say seems to be in like almost every policy I read. Basically, if you are a 501c3, you can have control over that money because in theory, you are a legal organization and you have your own bylaws and all that stuff.
Yeah.
If you're not, then it does need to go to some type of school activity fund. So I will say that is very consistent with what I read. But I wasn't sure, one of the questions I wrote myself was, did we want to include, because at that fundraising meeting a couple weeks ago, there was talk about financial guidelines, you know, about like doing like a little reconciliation at the end of a fundraiser. And I don't see any of that reflected here with the changes. And I think that if that's something that people are supposed to be doing.
That's currently in the regulations. So
Okay,
that's
all right, so
already
that's
in the
correct. Okay,
regulations.
so that's
Yeah.
already in there. Okay, all right.
Yeah. And that is required by law too. But
Yeah,
that's already in
no,
there.
that's fine. Yeah, no, I don't think so. So that's that piece. So then below here with the approved peer-to-peer sites, to gain approval, they must have this. The one that I will say, and Anissa will talk about, is number 4.
Mhm.
I really don't think that should be in there. That I'm very against.
Yeah.
And from the standpoint of, are we gonna start monitoring profit margins for concession stands, you know, any type of fundraiser? I don't feel like you can dictate and set a benchmark
Mhm.
because maybe it's like your own internal guideline of, because essentially you're gonna determine what sites are appropriate, right? So I feel like if a site is gonna take 23% instead of 20%, you
Right.
know,
I think the issue is more about being really transparent to the people who are donating,
Yeah,
right? Of how much of their profits are actually going to this platform and how much are going to the kids, right? That's what people really want to know. So maybe instead of putting a cap on it, we could do a recommendation.
yeah.
But also
I'd
just say,
like
like,
something like
but
that.
they have to,
Yeah.
they will have to disclose to to everybody when they're doing their fundraiser, what portion goes to the kids.
Yeah, I'd rather like something like that than saying like it has to be, it cannot exceed X.
Yeah.
Cause then I think you're just gonna pigeonhole yourself too much.
Mhm.
So
So
yeah,
maybe-
there's like a,
Recommendation,
Yeah.
but then the statement about transparency.
and actually, a lot of 501(c)(3)s that do like fundraising do typically make a statement like that, you know, at like the bottom, like of their fundraisers.
They're tricky, they hide it though. I mean, they honestly do hide it because that's how they make money, right? So one of the recent ones we had said, you know, they only keep 20%, right?
Yeah.
But then it turned out that the kids only got 20 or 30%, right? Because the 50% or however much it depended on how much they raised, all goes towards a party and prizes and incentives and their managing platform and all those kind of things. So our hope is that all of that is transparent so that somebody knows that if they're donating $100, they know that only 20 or 30 are going to the kids because they might choose to just write that organization a check. Or they might choose to just donate to a different fundraiser or buy 5 sweatshirts instead.
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
it just helps, I think, their consumers, right? So it's just more open in terms of like letting a consumer make those choices.
Yeah. And now with I think probably everybody agrees with the general crowdfunding platforms. And again, that's pretty consistent with what I was reading in other policies. But the peer-to-peer platforms, and I think this came up in one of the letters we got by someone who said like, the Readathon platform that they use is a state-approved website. So that's considered, is that considered a peer-to-peer?
Yes.
And is there a way for us to direct people towards those state-approved
Yep.
sites? Because they're already kind of doing the.
We actually have a link on our
Legwork, right?
website already
Okay.
to all the approved ones. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it's on our technology page for all approved sites, right? I think Ken sent me something.
I haven't
I can
seen it. I'll
double
look at
check,
it. Yeah, I
but-
don't know.
Yeah.
okay. Um,
And also, usually things only need approval once, right?
Well, yeah.
So if somebody says, okay, this one's okay, add it to the list
Yeah.
and just keep it running.
Yeah. The one thing I did read a lot about was like sites, and I don't know if this would be part of maybe how to be an approved site. Because when I was reading it, I wrote myself a note like, oh, what about having like, you know, obviously in healthcare, we have like BAAs, you know, so that there's no transfer of private information.
Yeah.
But I guess in the student data privacy world, it's like COPA, like COPAA. So like some of these sites are, and then that's how they don't share information. Like, should we make that a requirement? I don't know. That's not my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But I had heard that basically like, then that's kind of their benchmark of knowing that they're not sharing information.
Yeah. I can look into that. I mean, I'm not sure if that's too high of a threshold for
Yeah,
a
I
lot of
have
these
no idea.
companies, you know, because I think that's pretty strict, but
Okay.
yeah.
Well, sorry, I had another point I wrote myself a note on. We have had instances, and I don't remember what was done, so I'm not pinpointing a certain circumstance, but I know, you know, every school district, I'm sure, goes through some traumatic events, you know, that might affect a staff member or a student or family. And a lot of times, you know, people will set up like a meal train, or like they will set up, you know, like a GoFundMe, you know, maybe sort of thing. And like, those are really only like in extreme circumstances. And I'm just wondering, like, is it worth it to put some language in there, you know, basically it would only be acceptable, like, you know, by the superintendent during traumatic,
We
you
had,
know, or something.
we had a injury that was traumatic and we put up a GoFundMe was set up, not by the school though, it was by friends of And so,
But then I was wondering, did it violate though the policy 1313 because it was a staff member?
And they received,
Because I went where you went.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, but
Mhm.
it wasn't a school sponsored activity.
So as long as it's outside, as long as it's nothing that the school district set up. And it was in just a member of the community, a
if a
member of that
member of the
person's
community
family.
did it, then. they
Yeah,
can do
then
it.
that's
Not for
okay.
anybody.
Okay.
It's not
Yeah.
RSD 13 branding. or
Mhm.
anything.
No,
Like, the district didn't do a GoFundMe for a staff member. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, good question though.
okay.
and it's occurred, and it'll probably occur again. Well, we have a big fire down the street.
I know, I just dropped off close.
Yeah,
Right now,
Yeah.
Um,
I'm curious as to how people are thinking about this and how people are feeling and about like the images. I mean, because that's the big legal part, and if you think that this language will work moving forward.
You're talking about likeness of students, yeah. I mean, speaking for my own district, I do believe we also have the same policy where there's a form, student and parent handbook that they sign, and there is something that says, you know, likeness. Likeness is, you know, you're consenting for this.
Yeah.
So I just, if we're allowing it, then becomes, how come they get to, but we can't, you know, so that I would look into that perhaps.
Yeah, and what we talked about is possibly just putting a little check on the permission form for the fundraiser, you know. Which could be, yeah, like if I'm volunteering to work at the bench warmers at the Durham Fair, you know, my kid has permission to do that, and yes, you have permission to use their photo, right? You know, so if they're posting, come down to the fair, like it's all just in one stop permissions.
It's definitely an issue that's come up over the years, and
Yeah.
some parents get extraordinarily upset when they see their child's
Yes, they
photo,
do.
whether it's on somebody's
Yeah.
posting on
Mhm.
Facebook. It's happened numerous times I can think of.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's quite upsetting to some parents. They just don't want their kid's photo put out there.
Yeah.
And that definitely, I see the proactive need for addressing it for sure.
Well, I mean, I think people think it's never gonna happen, but like the internet predatory behavior is real. It is a real thing. Unfortunately. And, you know, one of the things that we talked about with Facebook, Kim and I were just talking about it, is, you know, this is why we can only discourage it, but we do discourage it, is just that somebody puts their child's picture out there and it says, you know, Strong Middle School, you know, or they're wearing an athletic uniform, you know, it is personally identifiable no matter what happens. And you don't always have control over where it's shared. Or who it's shared with.
Now, I've received emails from family members where their children are raising money. And I mean, even though we're related, just their name appeared, no
Mhm.
picture.
Mhm.
So,
And it was at,
so you could identify,
you can,
who it was for.
right.
And I'm not sure if the school was mentioned. I don't recall,
Mhm.
but I know it was just the name. There was no picture.
And was it
There's
just
some
asking?
way to identify with people, you know, that you may be sending stuff to, but,
Yeah.
but
without
this would
putting a
be,
picture.
And it would be the parent choice. Like, that's what we're saying, is that the school cannot have anything to do with that. If the parents are choosing to do that, this revision to the policy. you know,
This
would
was a
open it
school
up to crowdfunding.
Sponsored,
Yeah.
fundraisers.
yeah, if parents are electing to create a readathon page with their child's picture.
Mhm.
You know, they're consenting to that, just how parents consent, right? At the start of every school year, we all have to consent whether or not we want to use our kids in
Yeah.
digital images for the school district.
Mhm.
So it's on the parents to whatever they choose,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So I have a question about the line. At any time personally identifiable student information is released, the district will immediately discontinue the fundraiser.
Mhm. That means like from the platform.
Okay,
So that's not like parent, like I can add language in there to
Yeah.
clarify that, right? But that's like if we find out that whatever platform is, you know, being used is violating, and they're saying, oh, actually, we are sending this to Target so they can send you advertising,
Okay,
like
yeah.
those kind of things. So
yeah,
I'll add language to clear that up.
yeah, because I just remember from the meeting that
Yeah.
was something parents brought up of like, you know, what if my kid posts their fundraiser link on Instagram is that gonna shut off the fundraiser immediately or,
Mhm.
um,
And under our old policy,
Yes.
it would,
yes.
yeah.
So, I mean,
This is really about if like somebody's behaving badly,
of course.
yeah, or if it's a bait and switch.
Yeah, and, yeah, I guess I didn't see anything in here in the updated version that would cause that to occur. It's just the platform itself.
Mhm.
Okay.
The other things we wanted to clear up is, you know, we have a lot of, we want to really clearly distinguish, and again, this will probably go in the FAQs, probably not the regulations. But we want to really clarify the difference between an event and a fundraiser, right? So the PTOs will do events and they charge somebody like $5 for a movie afternoon. They're not doing it intentionally to make money. I mean, they might make a little money, but their
To cover
intention,
costs.
right, their intention is not to fundraise. On the other hand, we have question about, you know, a group holding a dance and their intention for holding a dance is to fundraise. So that becomes a fundraising activity. That's not an event. So the difference is the intention. Are you just covering your costs and you might make a little money, you know, who knows? You might lose money, right? More likely. Or are you specifically holding an event for a fundraiser, like a car wash? You know, that would be a fundraiser still. The other thing that we wanted to really clearly distinguish is the difference between fundraising and like a service or a charity. You know, so that is not going to be applicable under the fundraising policy because somebody might say, oh, yes, you know, there was actually one at one of the elementary schools where it was like cards for teachers or something like that. And that's more of like it's either like a service because the card goes with it and the kids do something, or it's actually just you're raising money because you're donating it all to charity. So both of those situations wouldn't fall under the fundraising policy.
I know this came up in that meeting too, and I really do think it is something we should, I mean, I feel like I liked it from an keeping organized was, there used to be like the calendar.
Yeah.
You know, so that this way then fundraisers didn't overlap with one another and then each school did like one fall, one spring, and then 2 services
Mhm.
fall to in the spring. And I feel like then that also seems like it's more manageable for parents too.
Yeah.
And that doesn't need to be obviously in the policy, but I
Right.
think,
Well, if this all goes forward, I made kind of a list of the things that need to come. So we need the list of the fundraising groups and their fundraisers, the calendar, so people aren't crossing over and asking people for money all at the same time. They're not we don't have 5 groups selling wreaths, you know, things like that.
Yeah,
this
that's
time of year.
historically been facilitated by the building administrators. They communicate amongst each other and
Right.
say, okay, we're gonna do this week, you can take it. It had worked that way in the past. I mean, obviously we've got new staff changes and maybe they're not aware of
Right.
that prior mode of operating.
Yeah, there seemed to be a desire at the fundraising meeting to have it be like for the whole district. So it's like a big, all the groups kind of
Yep.
share so that there's no overlap, which I think is a great idea. We also want to obviously update the policy and the regulations. We want to update the FAQs, update the list of approved partners and like the approved places from the state already. And then also like do a really kind of clear checklist guide for building administrators who are approving these, you know, just to make it easier. Is it this or that? Yes, go to the next one. Is it this or that? Yes, just so that people feel a little bit less stressed out about what they can and can't approve.
so what I'm hearing, just to kind of recap off of this, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I feel like it just reiterating this may help clarify, especially for those that aren't here or, you know, that were at the last fundraising meeting. So based on the changes that we have here, this will allow peer-to-peer fundraising from state-approved sites and or potentially other sites could get approved by submitting an application.
Yeah.
Of course, no crowdfunding like a GoFundMe still continues.
Mhm.
And that this will allow for parents at their discretion with their consent, they can post so if their heart desires.
Yep.
Right? Okay. So I think that kind of addresses. like
Even though
that.
I'm still gonna kind of discourage
Yeah.
putting your kids out on the internet everywhere, but yes, it would.
Yeah, but they can if they choose, yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm. Well, there's lots of parents out there that don't post any pictures of their kids, you know, so. Okay. Oh, you know, and I'm sorry, I have one other thing, I just realized it too. I did see something that I did actually kind of like in some other district policies where they talked about how it really should be class level goals and not maybe individual goals. Like, I still think with some of them, there are individual goals, like a readathon, but basically where it builds more of like that community
Mhm.
versus making it be like, oh, well, Anne's beating John by $5 today. And I think a lot of the peer-to-peer sites do make it like that, like it's more,
We have-
look how much the school has raised, and it's not singling out.
Mhm.
So I think we can try to,
It's like Girl Scout cookies.
yes,
We're not doing that,
yeah,
right?
Mhm.
I mean, well, some girls got. cookies.
No, but-
Yeah, no.
They get a trip if they get somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, fundamentally, fundraising isn't equitable. Like, it's not, it lacks socioeconomic equity, no matter how you slice it, right?
Yeah.
Unless it's purely like a car wash, and, but even maybe not then, because the kids can't get there. But anyway, yeah, I mean, we don't want it to be such a competition where kids are always feeling like they're not contributing.
And I think that's actually the difference of a peer-to-peer versus a crowdfunding site.
Mhm.
Because crowdfunding is very focused on an individual. A peer-to-peer, even though an individual might have their own page, it's still more how much you're contributing to the school goal.
Right,
But
or what your
peer-to-peer
goal is and how
And
close
how
you're getting
that's
to your goal
for
as
that
opposed to
school, yeah.
comparison to other people.
I guess the thing that I still worry about with peer to peer is, a lot of them say, please do this and send it to 20 people, right? If you don't have 20 people that you can send it to who have money to donate, or even 20 people to send it to, you don't have a big family, or maybe you don't have a family at that time, right? It's always going, we're
Or
always
you
gonna
have
go into
3
that
kids in the
situation.
Same grade,
Mhm.
and it makes it very difficult.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
finding 60 people. then.
Wouldn't know.
Oh, is that?
Yeah, I got you.
So yeah, it can, but I do think we need to be somewhat accommodating, because that is, I think, a little bit of the wave
Mhm.
of new technology, so it's kind of a balancing act.
Yeah, and just for some clarification on part of why, like, I think both Kim and I feel comfortable moving this forward. We've talked to the attorney. We understand that this needs to happen, but, doesn't need to, right? But probably like makes a lot of sense. But, prior to this, the superintendent, the building principal, the head of the, golf team, whatever, we don't get to just change policy, right? So I wanted everybody to understand, like, it has to go through this process to be able to open it up, to be able to go to this next level. We can't ask individuals to just say, we're not following school policy, we're gonna do it this way.
As we get into the basketball season, there's the pink out night, and then there's a army night, and then there's some, and the kids are selling t-shirts for those nights.
Yeah.
Mostly it's by the parents, mostly by one of my daughters who's doing it,
Mhm.
but, how do those work?
Well, they're selling something, so
Something,
those are
okay.
like the most straightforward ones, right? And then,
You get something.
right, that's an easy one. However, the issue with the new revision would be if people want to post that online, they can at their discretion, right?
Just make sure we don't sell non-healthy food during school hours. That-
Right. We know, yeah.
That comes up, put it away, wait until, what?
Half an hour before and half an hour after. And you can't pick up food donations at school that are fundraiser. Unless
I
it's
do
after
think,
hours. Yeah,
I mean, our community is so blessed with all these groups that raise money. It
absolutely.
actually alleviates a lot of stress on our budget that we might otherwise would have to fund, and it would make it much more difficult to have good education. I'm thankful for it all, so I mean, I know,
People work.
and it's a lot of
hard.
work too, I know.
Yeah.
What you go through. Sorry, I only helped a couple times.
In terms of the process, the addition you had to the policy will have to go back through the system, but the regulations,
We can change the
you
regulation.
can adopt the regulations when they're
At the
ready.
next
We
board
can bring
meeting.
it at the next board meeting if everybody's all set, so it won't take 3 months. 2
Right.
months to
It could be ready in January.
Right.
Okay, good then.
Any other questions from the committee?
I guess this is jumping to the FAQ section.
Yeah.
that We didn't read through yet.
Mhm.
But under peer-to-peer fundraising, the second sentence says instead of one central fundraising page, yada, yada, yada. Maybe we should update that to be like the kind of public searchable fundraising page.
You're in peer-to-peer fundraising, the definition?
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's, I mean, peer-to-peer is definitely how it is described, where it's, you know, multiple individuals talking to multiple individuals, but and maybe something like I'm thinking of is like an online store, maybe
Mhm.
that sells sweaters.
Mhm.
That would be one central fundraising page technically.
Yeah.
If it's not individualized to the students.
Okay.
So I don't know if where that fits in necessarily, or if that's something that's done.
So if this is a definition, we could just add that by saying, a peer-to-peer fundraising. Well, peer-to-peer fundraising would be that one central fundraising page where individuals create it, but we could also say, or a single site used by the group.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
add that in there. Do you want me to add like, or like example online store?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, more clarification, the better.
This is just like a nuance, but under personally identifiable information where it says student name, it should be the full name. Cause that to me is like, then you know who they are, you could Google them, you could find out where they live.
Hmm.
You know, if it's just, you know, Ella, it doesn't really like.
I think it would be a matter of like, is it Ella at Brewster Elementary School?
Well, yeah, then, well, also, but yeah, and or like anything that you add this, because I also did write a note for like grade level, because to your point, if you said support Ella at, you know, in kindergarten at Brewster, it's like,
Right.
well, yeah, now you can
Yeah.
easily identify that child.
Mhm. Added.
Well, all PTOs are supposed to be 501(c)(3)s or C3s, or do they not have to be?
I don't know if all of ours are. Kim would know. I don't, because
Just
some
not
use,
sure if they're required.
they should be.
They're-
They might be required to be. If they're not, it has to run through student activity account. They can't have their own bank account.
Yeah.
And I don't think one of those
That's something we
PTOs,
wanna
it
make
could be either
consistent.
workers.
Right, not just
Whichever
Could
works
be a
best.
partner. Yeah.
Yeah,
And, you know, a lot of that has to do with the collection of money, because the last thing a PTO wants to do is to collect money personally. Right? And yeah, or have a personal Venmo, right? So that's why someplace in our regulations or the FAQs, we also have 501(c)(3) can obviously collect their own money and they can have a Venmo, right?
Business.
They can have a business Venmo, no problem. It just can't go through the personal channels.
Sometimes it's just, I could see, especially for even like smaller groups, it's cost prohibitive for them to become a 501(c)(3). It's expensive. And it's very time consuming. It's a very lengthy application. So I don't think it should be a requirement, but maybe a strongly encouraged, you know, like the wording with social media.
Well, a lot of groups use our student activities
Yeah,
account for that
some,
reason,
yeah.
but I think what Kim's saying is that if you're actually a PTO,
I think
I think you
PTO
might need to be there. You're not required to be a 501(c)(3).
If you've got a sports organization that doesn't have their 501(c)(3), they're fine. We have an activity account and it runs through there and it works fine.
Wait to ask questions.
I know. Up to Christine.
I mean, well, we have like, you know, a few minutes, you know, if we want to allow.
Yeah, sure.
Well, we have public comment at the end anyway.
Yes,
So.
yeah. Well, technically in public comment, we're not allowed to respond. Yeah, so we can ask for questions now, since we can't respond technically during public comment. So we'll open it up to questions for those of you here.
Or comments.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So if, just for clarification purposes, so if a student-run group, say like student council, right, has a social media page, they might post information on a dance or fundraising for that student council, like, I think Carmine's does, you know, the pizza, right? And they say they get
Yeah.
15% goes towards the class. They outline the amount of percentage. Is that allowed
Yes.
to be done?
Mhm.
And are students allowed to share that with their friends, that information?
Yes, but what we're discouraging is, the picture of the student and the name and everything being part of that going out. But yes, they are allowed to share those things.
Okay. So
With this
will that
revision.
clarification be passed out to the advisors of those groups? Because the students are not being told that same information.
Well, that's because this hasn't changed yet,
Okay,
right? So like as soon as everything changes, we'll be able to get everything out to everybody.
all right, so as long as there's no names or likenesses, they are allowed to
Mhm.
give that information out and share it?
Yep.
Thank you.
No, just to clarify some of the looks at me. It's a difference between PTO and PTA, whether you have to be a 501(c) or not.
Thank you.
And
And
then
which one is which? Which one has to be the 501(c)(3)?
the PTO that does not have to be
Okay,
and can still purchase their own insurance.
okay.
And to Christine's point, yeah, the majority of, I believe I heard that Brewster and Memorial were switching to 501(c).
Yeah, they have
And strong.
They're already, yeah, what happened, my
I
kids were
haven't
there.
been there for a long time. Yeah.
When you, yes.
Yeah.
We
But
did.
initially, it was cost prohibitive because of the amount of money that we were actually raising. What was the other thing? Oh, clarification. The point about the pink out, because all of those proceeds, whatever we sell from T-shirts or bake sale or whatever, or the game, all of it goes to, pink
Charity.
out goes to charities.
Then
So
that's
it's
not a
charity,
fundraiser.
Right.
Do you want to see if any?
I think we need both of their names and towns for the record.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Juan Stefan with Durham.
Elizabeth Viennes with Middlefield.
Do you want to see if there's any questions?
We do
online
have
via-
two. I didn't know if there's anybody else here. Are we all set with people in the room with questions and comments? Okay, we have Amanda, and then we have one more after Amanda.
And then just state your name and town with, before your question.
Amanda Betty again in Durham. I had a couple of questions. I'm listening while I'm in the car, so bear with me. There was a mention about no fundraising and advertising. Can you just kind of repeat that? I was kind of confused by that. Like it can't be
Sure.
combined? Is that?
Just to clarify, we have prohibitions on targeted advertising. So if you're doing a fundraiser, you can't sort of use that fundraiser to advertise for something else. Right?
Like
So
for
you
another
can't-
fundraiser or for a business?
For a business, like you can't use your fundraiser to advertise for a business.
So would that essentially, like the Benchwarmer sells the banners on the fences, can they not do that now?
No, they can, that's a separate policy.
Okay,
But
I was
this
confused
would
by
be-
that.
Yeah, this would be basically sort of trying to sneak in advertising in a fundraiser, right? So by
Like
saying,
in
okay,
the like flyer or something, you mean like that?
in the flyer, in the
Okay.
messaging, those kind of things,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, that's that. I was very confused by that, so that clarifies that.
That's
The
what
other
we
thing-
codified the Policy.
The other question
Sorry,
I
go-
had was about the student activity fund having to run things through that. Like, so currently Strong's PTO, we have an EIN, we have bylaws, we have our own account. We have just filed with the state of Connecticut. We're in the process of becoming a 501(c)(3). Do we now have to go ahead and like close out all of our stuff and then run everything through the school now? Because it's been that way, I guess, for probably a very long time. I think the EIN number, the paperwork I have is from Juan years ago. So what would we have to do?
I don't, like, we're not asking, if you're in the process of being a 501(c)(3), that's great, just, that's who you would be. But it's only for groups that are not their 501(c)(3) have to run through the student activities account. It's just to prevent anything from going through anybody's personal accounts.
Oh, okay. Because we don't have any personal accounts. It's all, the PTO itself. But I just wanted to double check that because we're not technically a 501(c)(3), but we're
in the process. So,
And as soon as you are, we have a form that you're gonna give to Mrs. Newbig, just with the name, the contact, the EIN, just for our records, and it should be all set.
okay, do you want the EIN that we have now?
I'll let her communicate with you, because we are asking, like, we want that approved
Sorry.
community partners list, so, no, it's okay. We want
Okay.
that community partners list and are asking everybody to fill out that form, so the two of you can communicate that about getting that form filled out, and there's a space for the EIN on there.
Okay, perfect. That was all my questions. Thank you.
Thanks. We also have, one more. We have Emma, who I will move in now. Emma, you should be ready to talk.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to thank the board for going back over the policy. I can tell that you guys have read all of the very long and extensive emails that our groups have sent to you because it's very clear, you know, the language in the policy. And I just want to say that we appreciate that. I do just want to caution against the same thing that Christine was saying with the giving an exact like percentage in the policy, just because I think I mentioned it in one of the emails, but there's just a lot of variation to the contracts. And sometimes there's a service provided, sometimes there's the donors can actually check a box to cover the fees and then they're not taken out at the end. Sometimes, or most of them that I've seen, you can also take in-kind donations during the fundraiser and they can be attributed to the student on the back end without incurring any fees on the in-kind donations. There's just a lot of nuances to that. And obviously no group wants to compromise student safety or student information, number one, but also nobody wants to give away a high percentage of donations. I think that's just something that everyone really weighs with what they have available to them to budget for an event and like what, you know, what the status of where their group is at. But I think just giving like a specific number is tough. There's also some that like the more you raise, the percentage goes down. So that's a hard thing to know like when you first sign up for a fundraiser. But I do agree that like those things can be made transparent to people. I also just think that the more times, you know, we're all volunteers, so we're doing our best to put out the information. But with more experience and kind of the more times you do a fundraiser, you kind of tweak the way that you put out the wording and things like that to like improve the way that it is, you know, presented to the community and the kids and everything like that. So some of that I think kind of comes on the back end in conversations in planning rather than like in the policy itself is just what I would, I guess, recommend. Thank you.
Emma, just could you state your name and town, please, just for the
Oh
record?
yeah, sorry, Emma Quick from Durham.
Thank you.
So then technically public comment, if there is any public comment. Any additional public comment online? All right, so then is there a motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Right.
Right.
Thank you. Nice job, new policy chair.